Hello everybody out there, welcome to Film and Vinyl here on Cinema Gulp. That is our channel. I'm Ben, and this episode's going to be on the beloved soundtrack for The Lost Boys. And if you want to win some awesome Lost Boys merch, stay tuned to the end of the episode where Film and Vinyl is going to be doing a giveaway.
When a vampire buys it, it's never a pretty sight. No two bloodsuckers go out the same way. Some yell and scream, some go quietly. Some explode, some implode.
The 1980s gave us so many popular coined movie catchphrases that one finds it hard to count. I'll be back. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. I'm too old for this shit. But my personal favorite has always been...
Holy shit! It's the attack of Eddie Munster!
Probably not as well known, but nonetheless iconic. Released on July 31st, 1987 by Warner Brothers, The Lost Boys, directed by Joel Schumacher, was a decent success in the US, making $32 million on an $8.5 million budget. A very low budget if you've seen the gloss and unique beauty of the final product. However, it was critically and culturally a much larger hit than the box office numbers would suggest.
Ray, you never need to call me.
Making household names of Kiefer Sutherland, Jamie Gertz, Jason Patric, and of course, the Coreys. The film was just stuffed full of beautiful cinematography, excellent lush production design, a stellar young sexy cast, and a soundtrack that crafted the film's tone perfectly, but also transcended the film to become a cultural molding piece of pop collaboration. In 1985, The Lost Boys was originally conceptualized as more of a Goonies-type film, with the characters being written much younger as kids, and the Frog Brothers actually being Cub Scouts. It wasn't until Joel Schumacher took on the project that he saw it completely different. He felt it was time that a film represented vampires as more fun, sexy, and more importantly, hip. He hated the idea of kids against vampires and said he would never sign on unless he could change the characters into teenagers. I've always felt this was the only route to take for this movie, and thank God Joel saw it the same way. Lost Boys is a classic piece of cinema. In order to achieve this status, he not only had to assemble a truly visionary crew and an up-and-coming young cast, but also enlist the services of someone who knew music inside and out. Entertainment industry veteran Michael Papel acted as music consultant on the film, having consulted on such 80s films as Valley Girl, Plain Clothes, and Real Genius. Prior to joining the film, he ran his own independent marketing promotions company that was founded in 1980, and then in 1990 co-founded Interscope Records. Thomas Newman wrote the original score as an eerie blend of orchestra and organ arrangements. This is, to this day, a very different Thomas Newman. He used a very intense and sometimes melodic arrangement to step over one another. There are gentle and relaxing beach tone themes that mix with real crashing wave sound effects, and then organs that scream into the film right as tension is being built.
Sam, come back! No way! Sam, come back! Sam, come back! Enough!
His score plays throughout the entire film and gives the action a great sense of scope and stakes. The organ thrusts in and out, like Nick Cave dropping bricks on his organ keys.
Mom, no! Mom!
Now, the release soundtrack consisted of one of Thomas Newman's actual score in order to make room for the film's original rock and pop tracks. However, an extended version came out a few years later on CD, consisting of 2 discs, one of them all Newman's work. It's a really great listen. This score is amazing. There's fun with loud horns and drums for the scenes with the Frog Brothers and the Emersons, all geared up to take on the Bloodsuckers. There's sexy intrigue for the exposition and mysterious moments. And what I feel is the strongest element of the score, the organ and choir combo. Wow, when it hits you, it's amazing and brings next level to the excitement and scares. Brings the dread up, but keeps it fun. It's been in the conversation among some of the best soundtracks of all time. I would even argue that it paved the way for the major movie soundtrack renaissance of the 1990s. It walked that line of trending, hip, pop bands, major rock bands, and actual original theme songs. And even some oldies but goodies like the Rascals' Groovin', to satirically invoke the illusion of new beginnings and family, the way the movie starts out. But the most notable track on the album has got to be G. Tom Mack's Cry Little Sister.
Joel Schumacher, the director, the great director of Lost Boys, asked me to write a theme song for the film, and I basically read the script and got inspired by it and wrote it, and then it became it just became he wanted it everywhere in the movie, and but obviously we tamed it, we made it work, and there was a lot of incredible synergetic, creativity between Joel and myself as to when and how the music got implemented, my song got implemented into the film. But yeah, I mean, it was one of those bits of magic, really,
And it plays out like magic. So this isn't something where you had to see a finished edit of the film in order to draw inspiration from. You kind of went into it blindly, maybe having only read the script first?
Well, it was the first time at that point I'd done about probably 14 films, of that period. And the period being the 80s. But they were shooting, so Joel said, can you send you a script and maybe you'll get inspiration from that? And I did. And so I went on to, I remember reading the script one night. I was in New York living there, and then the next day I got up and started banging away at the piano and my guitar, and out comes this melody, and then it morphed itself into me going up to my studio up 6th Avenue and getting there and started to just go away at the lyrics and put it all together.
Because of what happened in the 80s with the rise of sort of I don't want to call it hair metal, but you have a soundtrack. You have a soundtrack that has a significant amount of that, and it also has things like Echo and the Bunnymen and In Excess.
Yeah, right.
Your song stands out on that, and you're probably humble, but it is the song that sort of transcends the album and has been covered over and over and over again. Does that still feel amazing, or did it ever?
I mean, I didn't really know how powerful it was until really things became internet-wise, I mean, I saw my royalties, and I was going, well, this must be doing well, But that really, but that was on a soundtrack. Cry Little Sister was never really released as a single. It was forced to be a single in England because people were just gravitating to it. But it just, a lot of times people didn't even know who did it, because it was just sort of like, it was the theme song. It is the theme song to Lost Boys, but it was just kind of, as an artist, I was kind of lost of like, who did that, until finally everybody caught on.
Aside from creating an amazing sound design, sound editors Larry Caro, Craig Clark, and Louis Edmond, along with music editor Kenneth Carman, really let Cry Little Sister influence moment to moment, as well as cast a giant shadow over the unique visuals and tension that certain moments create. Another great track that helps fill out the album's original 44-minute runtime is Echo and the Bunnymen's cover of The Doors' 1967 song, People Are Strange. In addition from being performed for the soundtrack, it was also released as a single and peaked at number 12 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. The song was actually produced by the Doors' own original founding member and keyboardist Ray Manzarek. A 12-inch vinyl version was released in February of 1988 before the single was re-released in 1991. Being a musician and music lover himself, when Kiefer Sutherland was first offered the role, he was reluctant to sign on. It took finding out that the set list of bands that Schumacher had lined up to really catch his attention. It's said that his final decision on signing on to the film was finding out that Joel Schumacher had lined up In Excess and Jimmy Barnes to form an undisclosed number of tracks for the film. The song they ended up collaborating on was the totally rockin' Good Times, an awesome track that plays twice throughout the film, including the oh so awesome Death by Stereo exploding Billy Worth scene. Now, the infamous track that we all know and love from Tim Capello, I Still Believe, originally performed by The Call, has become ingrained in our brains as we visualize a muscular American gladiator gripping the neck of his saxophone like he's strangling a horse while shaking his purple tights-covered hips. He was a sax player for a lot of Tina Turner's music back in the 80s and 90s, including Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. His musical performance in the film is one for the ages and not to be forgotten anytime soon. A song that didn't appear in the original soundtrack was Run DMC and Steven Tyler's Walk This Way, which played in one of my favorite scenes in the film, the Surf Nazi Massacre scene. Andrew Lloyd Webber was so impressed by Schumacher's use of music in this film, he was immediately interested in hiring him to direct the Phantom of the Opera film that didn't materialize until 2004, which didn't turn out to be very good, but it did introduce the world to Emmy Rossum. Thank you for that. Schumacher's actually had several films in his filmography with wonderful soundtrack arrangements, including the not-so-amazing film Batman Forever, the movie What the Fuck Ever, the soundtrack a staple of 90s pop culture. There's a lot of cool nods to the music acts from the soundtrack in the film itself. You can see a poster of Echo and the Bunnyman behind Michael when he's carrying Star into the Emerson house up the stairs. And of course the gigantic mural of Jim Morrison himself in the badass vampire cave. The Lost Boys is one of my favorite films and my favorite vampire movie ever made. There's something special about watching The Lost Boys. It's beautiful to look at, first of all. It's one of those 80s films that's really stood the test of time despite the 80s fashion and some of the sensibilities. It creates a portrait of Northern California lifestyle and uses that as a fish out of water story. This was Schumacher at his peak, in my opinion. And it's hard to top the experience of viewing this film for the first time as a 9-year-old in the theater, and noticing its unique perspective and use of music through the ages. The Lost Boys soundtrack has been one of those very sought out but very difficult to find records. It's been out of print for years. You can go to Discogs. There's a few on there I've seen for around $30 to $35. Check that website to see what condition they're in, obviously, before you order them. The 180-gram audiophile red vinyl released in April 27th of 2018, and it can be found in limited capacity for around $32 at various websites, but recently they've all been out of stock. I'm not sure why this album has gone out of print or become so difficult to find. I will tell you that the original soundtrack released is not the preferable one. You want to find the extended copy with all of Thomas Newman's work on it. Now that one I believe is mostly only on CD, but I don't totally want to go empty-handed with my vinyl recommendation for the week, so as a companion piece, I'm going to go with Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez from Dusk Till Dawn. It's actually a pretty awesome soundtrack. Okay, so I promised if you stick around to the end of this episode, I'm going to give you some information on how you can win some amazing Lost Boys original vinyl artwork posters. Now to win these bad boys, it's really rather simple. Go down in the comments section below and leave a suggestion of a movie soundtrack that you would like to see me cover here on Film and Vinyl. I'm going to pick the top 2, and I'm going to do both of those in future episodes. So as always, thank you for watching Film and Vinyl, everybody. Leave some comments to win these posters. Thanks for watching, everyone.